you're here, it's probably not because your faith disappeared. You believe, you pray, even if it doesn't look the same as it used to. You're still doing all the same things that you've always done. From the outside, life probably looks fine, right? You're steady, you're responsible, looks like someone who has things handled. But inside, something feels quieter than it used to. It's not broken, it's not gone, it's just quieter in a way that's hard to describe unless you felt it yourself. The warmth isn't really there. The sense of closeness that you had hasn't gone away, but it doesn't show up the way it once used to. So it doesn't feel like a crisis, but it also doesn't feel alive. And that in-between space is what makes it confusing. Most people expect spiritual struggles to be obvious, right? Big doubts, big questions, some kind of moment where things fall apart. This usually isn't like that. It tends to happen quietly, over time, often while you're still doing everything you're supposed to be doing. When that happens, your mind usually starts looking for a reason. So you replay things, you wonder what you missed, if you drifted somewhere along the way, if you got complacent, or if you're distracted, if you feel you should be doing more. That kind of thinking feels responsible. But most of the time, it just adds weight to something that already feels heavy. For a lot of steady people, flatness doesn't come from neglect. It comes from endurance. Here's what I mean. Usually it forms over time. So long seasons where you're carrying responsibility and there isn't much room to feel. So you've got seasons where consistency mattered more than expression, where you still had things that needed to get done, whether you felt connected or not. Slowing down for you may not be an option, so you don't. Over time, faith doesn't disappear, but it does change how it functions. Early on, faith tends to feel more dependent. So you ask more, you lean more, you're aware of how much you need God. There's a kind of emotional aliveness to that because need keeps you open. Here's the flip side of that. As life fills up with responsibility, something else develops. You learn how to hold things together. You learn how to keep functioning even when your energy is low. You become reliable. Your belief stays intact, but the way you relate to that need starts to shift. So you don't stop trusting God, but you don't feel the same sense of urgency or closeness that you used to either. And without really noticing when it happened, faith became less about dependence and more about steadiness. That shift is not a failure. It's you adapting. When people rely on you, when outcomes matter, when there isn't much margin for you to fall apart, your system learns how to stay composed, learns how to stay regulated and contained. That's often what faithfulness looks like in real life. That kind of composure, though, comes with a cost. And it's not moral, it's internal. Usually for you to be receptive to change, it requires some sort of softness. And softness doesn't always feel safe when you're carrying weight. So what happens? Volume starts to turn down. Prayer gets shorter. It becomes familiar. You might still be reading scripture, but it doesn't land the same way. Worship doesn't stir much in you. You're there, you're just not moved. Nothing's collapsed, nothing's exploding. It just gets quieter on the inside. And because you're still showing up, it's hard to know what to do with that. You don't feel like you've abandoned anything, but you also don't feel connected in the way you used to. So that's usually when questions start creeping in. Did I pull back? Did God pull back? Is this just what faith looks like and feels like when you grow up? Is something wrong with me for not feeling more? Flatness isn't always distance. Sometimes it's containment. It's what can happen when you've been steady for a long time, when you've been carrying responsibility and there hasn't really been much relief. When holding things together became more important than paying attention to how you actually feel. God doesn't disappear in those seasons, but the way his presence is experienced can change. Feeling is not the only indicator of presence, but when feeling fades away, it's easy to assume that God's presence faded with it. That conclusion makes sense, it's just not always true. Formation doesn't stop when all of that sensation goes quiet. Some of the deeper formation seems to happen there, even if it doesn't feel like much at the time. So think about it. Faith keeps getting practiced, but without the emotional reinforcement it used to have. Trust keeps showing up, just without much reassurance attached to it. You keep doing what's right, even when it doesn't feel especially rewarding. That doesn't mean that numbness is the goal. It does mean that flatness might be information before it's something to fix. Oftentimes, it's just your inner world telling you something about how long you've been strong, about how much you've carried, usually without making a big deal about it. Competence and reliability became necessary somewhere along the way, and over time, there just wasn't much space left to receive anything else. And that's not because you did something wrong. You just did what was required of you at the time. God is often present beneath the surface in those seasons. He's quieter, less emotionally obvious, but still very much faithful. So it's worth taking a look at the fact that many people only start questioning their faith when that feeling gets a little bit thinner, even though they've still got belief there. They're still committed. The shape of a faithful life is still there. It's just that the sensation of nearness has changed, and that matters. Flatness isn't always a signal to try harder or fix yourself or chase a feeling that you used to have. Sometimes flatness is just an invitation to notice how much you've been carrying and how little room there's been to receive anything else back. Listen to what I'm about to say. There's no need to rush toward resolution. There's no need to diagnose yourself. There's no need to accuse yourself of something. You can just acknowledge what's true. Something feels flatter than it used to. And that flatness has a story. So a story shaped by endurance, responsibility, steadiness, by being someone other people can count on. Listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. God meets people there too. Not always loud. It's not always emotional. It's always faithful. Now, if this stirred something in you without tying it up neatly, that's very intentional. These sorts of things usually aren't meant to be rushed. So each week, I write a short reflection for people living this side of faith, especially in quieter seasons like this. It's just a place to think slowly and honestly about formation when life looks steady, but the inner world feels muted. There's no pressure. It's just space. If that's helpful for you, you can find it in the description below.